I'm Dr. Anthony Claude. I'm a board certified psychiatrist. In this video, I'm going to share with you biblical examples for people to have hope and resilience. Now, as a psychiatrist and someone trained in mental health, it's so important to deal with some of life's stresses and challenges in a good and healthy way. Because really, if there's too much stress in life, even if there's too little stress, it can lead to anxiety, can lead to depression, can lead to sleep problems. If someone is misperceiving reality or misperceiving a situation, it can lead to unnecessary tension and unnecessary stress and anxiety in their life. And it's so important to address in a healthy way. One example that comes to mind as I share this story is there's a story about a monk that's living in a monastery. And this monk just believes that people are like messing with him or giving him a hard time or being rude or mean to him. And so he would go to his spiritual father, spiritual guide, for guidance what to do with the situation. The spiritual guide tells him to write down good things that you see every day and good things about the people that you feel are messing with you. And 30 days later, the monk returns to his spiritual guide saying his whole situation has changed, he perceives the situation differently, and so forth. Now, maybe our situations are not as clear-cut as a story about this monk, but it does give an example of how important it is that we are perceiving the situations the right way. And I think the Bible has such good messages and good, even if you are not Christian and not living a Christian faith, I think it's such a powerful message of hope and resilience, and it can inspire all of us to live better and more fruitful lives. Even I was so passionate about this, I wrote a whole book about the subject, about the life of King David. You can find that through Amazon. Live Faithfully, the life of King David in the Psalms, in which I write basically a biography, his life, basically in a novel format because the Bible has it in different pieces and different areas. And not only is it like a biography of his life, I also put all the 74 or so Psalms that are believed he wrote into the aspects of life where he probably may have wrote them. And we don't know for sure, so it's some guessing, but it is quite an interesting project, and I enjoyed writing it. Hopefully you'll enjoy reading it, and most people who have read it have given me positive comments so far. So one of the first biblical examples that comes to mind of someone who has hope and resilience is Noah. Now, Noah lived in a time where other people were very evil, they're doing bad things, they were in sin. Basically, it was like a very corrupted life. And Noah was one of the few people, or one of the only people, that was able to live a close life with God and trust God. And he did so much that he built the ark even when other people were mocking him, ridiculing him for doing it. He was so committed to his faith and to his right path that not only did it save himself, but it saved others around him as well, meaning his family, and it helped to pave the way for future generations to come. Noah is really an amazing example of how God can protect and guide and save people even when other people around them are not doing the right thing. Maybe it's a difficult work environment or work culture that someone is in, maybe it's an environment of school, maybe it's in one's own family. You don't necessarily want to burn their bridges, you don't want to mistreat others, but you really want to just stay committed to your relationship with God, love others, do the right thing, and God will help you in the process. Next up is Joseph, and Joseph has an amazing life. Amazing in that he was favored when he was a young kid by his father. He was given a bright, colorful tunic to show how special he was, made his brothers jealous, his brothers sold him into slavery, and then so forth, the story goes. But Joseph, throughout the whole time, remained faithful and trusted in God. The Bible doesn't indicate he complained at all when he was sold as a slave. It doesn't indicate that he wanted revenge on his brothers. No, he used that position to glorify God with his trustworthiness, so much that his slave owner, Potiphar, trusted Joseph with almost everything that he had in his house. And then when Potiphar's wife lied about Joseph trying to commit adultery with her, Joseph was very cognizant of that being displeasing to God, and so he ran away from it, but yet he was wrongly imprisoned. And again, he didn't complain, but while in prison, he did his part to try to get other people closer to God and closer to the right way of living. Again, even in prison, Joseph was neglected. His prayers weren't answered initially. Several years after him being in prison, he finally got out. And when he got out of prison, he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream. And through his interpretation of Pharaoh's dream, Joseph was able to become like one of the leading people of Egypt, which was like the most rich civilization at that time. So he's basically a guy who was thrown into slavery by his family, imprisoned wrongly. But throughout that time, throughout those difficult situations, he persevered, he was patient, he trusted that God had a better plan for him. And God eventually made him basically the right-hand man of Pharaoh, almost like the vice president or the governor, or really one in charge. And he also gave Joseph the foresight or foreknowledge to save Egypt from the famine. And not only was able to save Egypt from the famine, he was also able to save his own family, because his own brothers ended up coming back to him asking for help. And it's really an amazing story of Joseph, how Joseph was able to tell that the intentions of his brothers were evil towards him, but Joseph understood that God meant it and to use it for good. It's a great example of what happens when one just completely shows their trust and love in God, and God will provide and revenge them on their behalf. You don't have to go attacking or retaliating, things like that. Joseph didn't retaliate himself. He didn't attack his brothers. He just trusted God would have something for him, and God did. Another story in the Bible is Job, and Job was one of the wealthiest people in the Old Testament during his time. He had a lot of family, and then all of a sudden, God allowed the devil to take that away from him. So he took away Job's family, took away Job's finances. Job even became sick as a process, and his wife began mocking him, being, what kind of God are you believing in that would do this to you? And it was really, I can't imagine, an unbelievably difficult time for Job. But throughout that process, he really tried to remain faithful to God, persevered, he was patient. And the end of the story shows that Job was rewarded, in fact blessed, even more so than what he had before. And so I know sometimes life can be painful, sometimes it can be challenging, sometimes it can hurt. Maybe there's no fault of one's own. But as you see with Job, as you see with Joseph, Noah, you got to deal with it the right way. If you don't deal with it the right way, that's just going to make the problem worse. If you deal with it the right way, promise you, God will come with a solution for the problem. Next person I want to highlight is Daniel. Daniel was living in a time when Israel was held captive by Babylon, but Daniel grew in reputation not only in the Israel kingdom, but in the Babylonian kingdom as well, and the Persian kingdom later on. And Daniel, again, he remained faithful to God. He remained committed to his prayer life. He remained committed to fasting, or being careful what he eats and not being gluttonous. Though even when the law of the land disallowed him from believing or from praying to God, he knew that God's law trumps the law of the land, and so he continued to pray to his God, who ended up saving him from the lion's den, and ended up saving him from harm. One of the last stories I want to talk about is this man born blind. This is in the New Testament, where the man is blind, I think, for several years, and Jesus heals his blindness. To me, it's an amazing story of just to be reminded about God's timing. God could have healed the man's blindness at birth. He could have healed the man's blindness at 60 years old. He could have healed the man's blindness at 20 years old. And also, God chose to heal it on the Sabbath day. The one day when Jewish law did not want healing or did not want anything taking place, that's exactly when Jesus healed it. It just shows that God's timing trumps whatever we can comprehend or whatever we can understand. He has a perfect time and a perfect season for his will and for what he wants in life. Maybe it's something family related, maybe it's something with a job, maybe it's employment status. There's some things that are just not in our control, and that we just have to trust that God knows what he's doing and being faithful to him, and that things will work out as they're supposed to work out if we continue to do our part. Again, it reminds me of St. Augustine's famous quote, at least famous for me. It says, "Pray as if everything depends on God, and work as if everything depends on you." Hopefully this just helps to find some hope and resilience in the Bible. Again, I think these stories can help with any mental health challenges or many mental health challenges people are struggling with. There's actually a type of therapy called bibliotherapy, and this bibliotherapy does find that it helps adults, helps children, to help them with some of their struggles, their emotional, their thinking, their challenges that people do with in everyday life. Because life is filled with challenges, adversity, and that's one of probably the most inevitable parts of life that one just has to go through. It's so important to deal with it in the right and healthy way. I'm not saying that believing in God or believing these stories or following them are going to prevent people from having mental health disorders or diseases, but it could help prevent it. If you're thinking the situation the right way, it could help prevent them, but not necessarily. Sometimes it just happens. Unfortunately, we get sick or disease or illness because things that are not in our control. And that's why it's important to talk to a doctor or a mental health clinician about what you're going through to see kind of what it's at. And if your symptoms are not that severe, if they're just mild in severity, you could even talk to like a pastor or a rabbi, and maybe that is enough guidance, or whatever faith you are, that maybe that's enough guidance to help you get back to your normal self. Hopefully you liked this video. If you liked it, be sure to like the video or write in the comments. Subscribe to the channel to help encourage me to do more videos.